Hello, good morning students. Please subscribe the channel, drop a like, share and comment. This is Shree Vishnu Art Press Publications exercise number 3 and 4 on the speed of 160 words per minute. Start. The two successive blackouts on July 30 and 31, each lasting more than 10 hours, caused havoc in the north of the country as well as the east and the northeast. Whatever the excuses put forward by the government, years of neglecting power sector reform and misplaced investment priorities are at the root of the crisis. On the first blackout day, confronted with a volley of questions, Union Power Minister Sushil Kumar Shinde tried to nonchalantly explain it all away by saying that his ministry was planning huge generation capacity additions and that the situation would improve in coming years. He also attempted to place the blame on power overdraws by some errant states. Worse, he even pointed to the blackout that had occurred in New York some years ago. His logic was that we should not view the latest blackout in our country so seriously when even developed countries in the West faced such problems. He was so anxious to prove the point that he proudly informed the impatient questioners that some of the developed nations had sought advice from Indian power sector experts on solving blackout problems in the West. What he, however, forgot to say was that we had rarely heeded the advice of those same experts who provided excellent advice to other countries. The problems faced by the residents of Delhi and the other places were of immediate urgency. They wanted to know why such a debilitating grid collapse was allowed to occur in the first instance and why it had taken such a long time for the authorities to restore power supply. There was visible anger in their voices. They wanted immediate solutions to the problem, not verbose generalizations. As if to call Shinde's bluff, there was a multiple grid collapse the next day, a sequence of crises that will not be forgotten for a long time. There are 8 state grids interconnected through high voltage alternate current HVAC links in the northern region. There are a few crucial high voltage direct current HVDC links also that transfer bulk power among the states according to an established formula. There are several high voltage transformers that step up and step down voltages in the system. There are both state and regional load dispatch centers with state of the art technology that keep a minute to minute tab on the power system health, triggering preventive and corrective action when needed. When there is failure in any one of these protective systems, grid collapses occur. Responses to crisis situations should be automatic, not manual. They should be based on highly sensitive, quickly responding, automated under-frequency relays that isolate the troubled portions of the grid before the contagion cascades into a grid collapse. The power draws in each state should match power availability. If the demand exceeds the availability, the frequency drops dangerously, causing the tripping of the system. Before that can happen, the demand needs to be managed prudently. Also, when power availability exceeds demand, the frequency can shoot up dangerously. Following 7 years of preparation for a 15-day extravaganza, London is finally ready for its tryst with Olympic history, pound 10 billion of expenditure, and a regenerated East End described by Jim White as derelict outpost to center of the universe in 5 years, but which continue to raise questions of rehabilitation for the original inhabitants and apprehensions over security. It hasn't been smooth for Londoners in the lead up to the world's greatest sports spectacle. Awful weather hasn't helped, and staging a successful Olympic Games will be a test of the organizers' mettle. As the newly created transport network ferries thousands of people from across the world to the Olympic Park in Stratford, and many thousands descend into the newly built Westfield Mall adjoining Olympic Park, Brand Olympics, currently valued at pound 47.6 billion and the second most valuable brand in the world after Apple, will also be on show. Questions like whether it is a simple sports competition or a global peace movement with serious political ramifications will be answered over the next 2 weeks as the world's best takes center stage for the ultimate sporting glory. London is the first city ever to host the Olympics for a third time. Lucky, considering its past record isn't anything to be proud of. Soon after the Games ended 100 years earlier in 1908, Baron de Coubertin, founder of the modern Games, had this to say: "It will be necessary to avoid copying the Games of London." Graham Kent, author of the definitive book on the 1908 Games, agrees. The London Olympics of 1908 were supposed to display the glories of the British Empire at its zenith, but they ended in uproar. Everything that could possibly have gone wrong did so. 1948 was little different. Known as the Austerity Olympics or the Make Do and Mend Games, organized in the aftermath of the World War II, the Olympics weren't half as glorious as they are in 2012. At the same time, the spirit, which is so very essential to the Olympic movement, was very much on display. In the words of Emil Zatopek, star of the 1948 Games, it stood for the sun finally coming out after the war. The same spirit is in evidence in 2012. Despite a serious recession, the Olympic venues are excellent, and Britishers, not simply Londoners, are much enthused by the event. Despite a critical home media echoing fears of a security and transport meltdown, almost all events are sold out, promising packed stadiums and the very best sporting action. Bringing in much needed international tourists, the opening ceremony, choreographed by Danny Boyle, will see an unprecedented 204 nations and 2 athletes with no nationality march today under the banner of the five rings in the Olympic Stadium. Importantly, each of the 204 teams have women in their ranks, making the 2012 Games the first gender equal Games in history. Boyle, too, is aware of the high stakes involved. He knows there is no chance of a retake and the world will pounce on the smallest mistake.